like a buttercup. You're a Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.
Hey everyone. Looks like a lot of you are sending us stuff about Trump's legal troubles. Specifically, that whole hush money case where he got hit with a felony conviction. Yeah, his lawyers are really going all in on this presidential immunity defense. Like, can he seriously get off the hook because he was president? We've got a mountain of sources here, articles, court documents, even some testimony transcripts. We've got stuff from White House aides, Michael Cohen, even some rumors about potential juror misconduct. I mean, this is wild stuff, like a legal thriller, right? So let's bring in our legal expert to help us unpack this whole mess.
I think what's really fascinating here is how Trump's lawyers are using this whole idea of presidential immunity to try and overturn the conviction,
Right, so maybe just a quick refresher. What exactly, I guess, a felony? Like, what did Trump actually get convicted of?
Well, a felony is like, it's a serious crime, as opposed to a misdemeanor, which is, less serious. In this case, the jury found Trump guilty on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records, all connected to those hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels right before the 2016 election. He's always denied the affair. But yeah, that's at the core of the whole case. And sentencing has been postponed for now, which is, another layer of complexity in this legal onion.
So that's the conviction, right? But now his lawyers are saying he can't be held accountable because of presidential immunity.
Yeah.
Could you break that down a bit? I feel like a lot of people probably don't really get what that means.
It's kind of like, think of it as a shield,
Right.
It protects the president from lawsuits and criminal charges while they're in office so they can, focus on running the country without constantly being dragged into court. For things related to their official duties, the Supreme Court has upheld this pretty broadly, actually. But, and this is where it gets interesting, the shield doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover things that are outside the scope of their official duties.
So are Trump's lawyers trying to say that everything he did while he was president was part of his official duties, even stuff like, arranging hush money payments?
Essentially, yeah, that's their argument. They're saying that all the evidence used in the trial, even stuff that seems totally unrelated to his presidency, stemmed from his official conduct and therefore should be inadmissible.
Okay. So do they have any specific examples to back up that claim that it was all official conduct?
They've pointed to a few things, like testimony from some former White House aides, Hope Hicks, Madeleine Westerhout, even some testimony from Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer. They're arguing that all these interactions with Trump, even the stuff about the hush money, somehow falls under the umbrella of his presidential duties.
Wow.
It seems like a stretch to me, but, that's their strategy.
So didn't a judge already reject that whole immunity argument, though?
You're right. Judge Juan Merchan, the judge in the trial, he rejected that broad claim. He was pretty clear that the evidence pointed to unofficial conduct and had nothing to do with Trump's presidential duties. In his ruling, he actually said, "This court concludes that if error occurred regarding the introduction of the challenged evidence, quote, such error was harmless in light of the overwhelming evidence of guilt."
So basically, he's saying even if they did use evidence that should have been protected by immunity, it wouldn't have changed the verdict anyway, because they had so much other evidence proving he was guilty.
Exactly. But Trump's lawyers aren't giving up. They've got another argument.
Yeah.
And it's even more complex, potentially even more far-reaching. It's the legal impediment argument.
Okay, hold on. Is this where things get really interesting, this legal impediment thing? What is that?
Well, even though the judge rejected that blanket immunity claim, Trump's lawyers are now saying that his status as president, remember he was elected again in 2024, that this creates a legal impediment to moving forward with any criminal proceedings.
Wait, so because he's president again, he can't be prosecuted for this conviction?
That's what they're arguing. And Judge Merchan hasn't ruled on this yet. So this is where it gets really fascinating, because it's basically uncharted legal territory. We have this conviction, right, just kind of hanging over Trump's head, but the whole process is kind of in limbo. While everyone figures out what to do about this legal impediment.
Okay, so we're waiting for that ruling. What are the prosecutors doing in the meantime? Are they just sitting around?
No, not at all. They're pushing back hard. They're saying the conviction should absolutely stand. Even if sentencing gets delayed, their point is basically justice delayed shouldn't equal justice denied,
Right, I see.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this. They're basically saying the presidency is like some kind of legal shield, even against convictions from before he was president again. Isn't that a bit of a slippery slope, like presidents are above the law or something?
That's exactly the concern, right?
Dang.
I mean, this case is so important because it's really pushing us to define the limits of presidential power. It's uncharted territory, legally speaking. This legal impediment argument, if the judge sides with Trump, could create this legal shield around sitting presidents, protecting them from basically any criminal prosecution.
Wow. So potentially this could impact how presidents behave, knowing they might have this kind of protection. What does that mean for accountability?
It definitely raises some serious concerns about accountability. And the rule of law, no question. We could be talking about a precedent that has repercussions for generations.
Yeah.
I mean, this case really forces us to look again at the boundaries of what presidents can and cannot do, both during A&T, after their time in office.
Okay, before we get too hypothetical, let's come back to the present for a second. What happens at NOW? Like, what are the possible outcomes while we wait for a ruling on this legal impediment issue?
Well, there are a few scenarios. One possibility is that Judge Merchan rules in favor of Trump's argument, which would likely trigger appeals all the way up to the Supreme Court. And that would be a major constitutional showdown.
Oh, yeah. I can see the headlines now. But what if the judge rejects the argument, the legal impediment argument, I mean?
In that case, the legal process could just continue, potentially leading to sentencing, even while he's president.
Could he actually go to jail?
It's definitely possible. But the judge has a lot of discretion when it comes to sentencing.
Yeah.
They'll consider the nature of the crimes, Trump's age and health, any mitigating factors.
So anything from a slap on the wrist to actual prison time.
Yeah.
But even if he avoids jail, just the fact that a sitting president is convicted of a felony would be historic.
Absolutely. It
Yeah.
would definitely send a message that no one, not even the president, is above the law.
Okay, those are two pretty big scenarios. But didn't you mention something about juror misconduct? Where does that fit in?
That's the wild card, right? If Trump's lawyers actually present those allegations and the judge finds them credible, it could lead to a mistrial.
A mistrial. So back to square one. A whole new trial. Seems like a big IF. What would they even have to prove? For the judge to declare a mistrial. It's not easy. They'd have to show that the misconduct was serious enough that it could have actually influenced the jury's verdict.
I see.
Think about it. A fair trial is the whole point, right? Like, it's central to our justice system. If something happened, that messed up the jury's deliberations. The whole foundation of the case is shaky.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what kind of misconduct are we even talking about? What could a juror have done that could throw out the whole trial?
Well, misconduct could be a lot of things. Imagine a juror has really strong opinions about Trump already, either for or against him. If that bias prevented them from looking at the evidence fairly, that could be misconduct.
Yeah, makes sense. A juror shouldn't go into it with their mind already made up.
Right.
What else?
Like, let's say a juror ignored the judge's instructions and did some research on the case themselves, went down internet rabbit holes, or they started talking about the trial with family or friends, getting outside opinions. That could sway their thinking. That kind of outside influence could be misconduct, too. Like those true crime podcasts where jurors start acting like detectives.
Exactly. It's understandable to be fascinated by a big case, but jurors have a duty to remain impartial and only consider the evidence presented in the courtroom.
Right, so we've got this potential mistrial, but even if that happens, could the prosecutors just retry the case?
They could, yeah. It wouldn't automatically mean Trump gets off. It would be like hitting the reset button, basically. The prosecutors would have to look at the evidence again, consider the public interest, and the likelihood of winning a new trial.
Okay, so we've got this really complex situation.
Yeah.
Multiple possible outcomes. The legal impediment ruling, the sentencing, the potential mistrial. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure legal thriller.
You got it. It's definitely fascinating, but also incredibly difficult to predict what's going to happen next. It really shows how complex our legal system is and how it deals with these unprecedented situations.
It's definitely making me think about the bigger picture. This isn't just about Trump. It's about the balance of power, the rule of law, and what it all means for our democracy.
It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just the legal stuff, This case has huge political implications, too.
Totally. It feels like we're watching the presidency evolve in real time. And honestly, I have a feeling this is just the beginning. With Trump back in the Oval Office, do you think we'll see more of these legal challenges?
It's certainly possible, yeah. And each one is probably going to bring its own set of complications.
Yeah.
and potential consequences for the presidency.
It's a lot to take in. So what does all this mean for, the average person trying to understand it all? It just feels so big, so historic. What can we even do?
I think the most important thing is to stay informed and engaged.
Right.
We need to understand the legal arguments, the potential outcomes, and how it all relates back to our democracy. The bigger principles at play. It's about being critical thinkers,
Yeah.
not just passively absorbing information.
I love that. Informed, engaged, and critical thinkers. That's a great motto, not just for this case, but for life in general, right?
I like that.
Analyze things, form our own conclusions. Don't just take everything at face value.
Right. And remember, there's always more to learn, more perspectives to consider, more layers to uncover. That's what makes these deep dives so interesting.
Well said. This deep dive has been amazing. So many legal twists and turns, political intrigue, and so many questions, right? I'm definitely going to be glued to the news, waiting to see what happens next. What about you? Is there anything specific you'll be watching for as this all unfolds?
For me, it's the ripple effect. This isn't just about Trump. It's about setting precedents.
Yeah.
That could affect how future presidents act, how they use their power, and whether they think they can be held accountable, for their actions. That's what I find the most fascinating and honestly a bit concerning. It's a huge responsibility for the judges involved.
Wow, that's a really powerful thought. We're not just watching a legal battle play out. We're potentially witnessing a shift in the very nature of the presidency.
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
Well, we've certainly given everyone a lot to think about today. Thanks for diving deep with us into this complex and, frankly, unsettling situation.
It's been my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, thanks for sending us all these sources. We love exploring these topics with you, unpacking these complex issues, and trying to make sense of it all together. Keep those sources coming. We're always ready for another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.
Sound the alarm. I'm coming up. We'll have a ball. I'm sweet like a buttercup. You're Barbie doll. Show them all what I'm made of. Strut down the hall. Won't stop till I get enough.